It is early November 2016, and it is profoundly obvious that the United States is in a horrible political mess. The Democratic Party chose probably the most defective candidate that possibly could have been chosen this year. Chosen a person of obviously not good moral character at all, who's been involved with apparently all sorts of corrupt business dealings. Even if Hillary Clinton were to be elected president, which is now in doubt, according to the latest polling data, it's pretty obvious that she would be a weak president facing a Republican majority in the House of Representatives, and consequently her program, whatever that program turned out to be, would go absolutely nowhere. A lot of people aren't happy at all with the position that the United States is in, and it seems very obvious that one version or another of hard times is just around the corner for the United States. It's hard to say at this point exactly what will happen, but it's pretty obvious that some rough times are ahead. A lot of people don't want to vote for Trump, and they don't want to vote for Hillary Clinton because they know that the U.S. is in a situation where basically we're caught between the devil and the deep blue sea, or the proverbial rock and hard place. But what happens if you want to go exercise your right to vote, but you don't want to vote for either one of those two people? As a matter of principle, it would be hard to vote for either of those two people, and yet we're told that we should go out and participate in democracy because it could make a difference. The state of California was in terrible shape in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis. There was double-digit employment. The state of California was in a horrible financial mess, and it looks like California wasn't coming back anytime soon. But then in the 2010 election, a remarkable thing happened. While the rest of America was throwing a Republican temper tantrum, in effect, and electing the Tea Party to the U.S. House, California returned former Governor Edmund G. Jerry Brown to the State House in Sacramento. And Jerry Brown actually had run against Bill Clinton in the Democratic race in 1992. In my opinion, he should have been elected president, would have been a far better president. But instead, the U.S. went with Clinton, and we had all of the problems that came about as a result of that presidency, the repeal of Glass-Steagall, welfare reform, NAFTA, and a whole host of issues, which have only started to have their effect combined with Republican conservatism in the last few years. But Jerry Brown was reelected as governor of California in 2010, and he did have a Democratic majority in the California legislature. And what did he do to fix the state's economy, to address the state's deep financial crisis? Well, Governor Brown knew that there was no way that the state of California was going to be able to slash and burn its way to prosperity. That's what conservatives believe. That's republicanism, and it hasn't served the Deep South very well. The Deep South are the most conservative states in the entire country, with the possible exception of some places like Utah and Kansas, and conservative republicanism hasn't served those states well at all. They have the highest poverty rates in America. They have more people on federal transfer programs like Social Security and food stamps than any other state in America. But California, too, was in a horrible nightmare, and Governor Brown knew that cutting the budget and cutting taxes were not going to be the ticket for future prosperity. And so he sold a program of budget cuts combined with major tax increases to the people of California. You see, a lot of people in the San Francisco Bay Area business community, Silicon Valley, and some related industries also realized that California would not be able to slash and burn its way to prosperity, that austerity simply wouldn't work. And so they aligned themselves with Governor Brown in this effort to pass significant tax increases which were submitted to the people of California in a referendum. Well, in the 2012 election, the citizens of California did pass major tax increases for that state. And conservative orthodoxy tells you that tax increases create a lack of prosperity, that businesses can't hire, that they can't add jobs, that they can't do anything, and that tax increases are automatically crippling. But Governor Brown knew better than that, and so did the Bay Area business community. And so these tax increases were enacted. They were combined with significant budget cuts. But here's the thing about budget cuts in California. And in contrast to states like Texas and states that you have in the Deep South, California has always been a high service state. So even when severe cuts are enacted in a state like California, the impact, although it's really bad, it's not nearly as bad as it would be in a state like Mississippi or Alabama or even Texas. So those cuts did hurt. But California's leaders had good sense to know that tax cuts alone and budget cuts wouldn't do it. So in combination with these massive budget cuts that were adopted, they also adopted a significant tax increase. And now it's 2016, and for a number of years, California has been firing on all cylinders. They've had outstanding job growth, and here's the important thing about the job growth that has happened in California. It hasn't been just any job growth. California's had growth in high wage jobs, high salary jobs in the last few years. And this has largely been the result of Governor Brown's fiscal and common sense responsibility and that of the legislature. And so unemployment has been reduced drastically in cities like San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. The official unemployment rate, that is. Now that we know that the official rates are always lower than the real rates because of the way unemployment rates are calculated. Still, the official rates in cities like San Francisco, LA, and San Diego have been much lower than many places across the country. When the Affordable Care Act went into effect in January 2014, the state of California did in fact expand Medicaid, as was originally intended by the Affordable Care Act. Of course, a lot of states did not do that, especially the red states. They refused the Medicaid expansion because the U.S. Supreme Court said that they were allowed to do so. But the California legislature did expand, Governor Brown that is, did expand Medicaid, and the California legislature allocated $600 million to its Medicaid program. And there has been, to a certain extent, a movement toward a single-payer system in California, but it has fallen just short in the past. If Donald Trump is successful this year and the Affordable Care Act is repealed, I would say that California would be one of the states that would be most likely to move ahead with a state program because it has been attempted in the past. So the legislature added $600 million to the Medicaid budget. They expanded Medicaid drastically, and then you had this combination of budget cuts with a significant tax increase that helped to solve California's long-standing financial woes. And California's financial condition had been so bad that people just couldn't see a way that they were going to be able to climb out of it. Republicans, of course, wanted to just keep cutting the budget, and as I've already said, in southern states that never works. In the conservative states, most of them, tax cuts, budget cuts by themselves don't work. But California did the other thing, and now they've had fantastic job growth in the last few years. They've returned to normalcy as it was. And there are always people who want to say that California is some overly regulated, overtaxed hellhole, and yet people continue to want to live there. You ever wonder why real estate prices stay dramatically higher than the rest of the country, even in the worst of times? It's pretty simple. People want to live there, and why do they want to live there? Well, California offers some of the most spectacular scenery that you'll find anywhere in the United States, and the climate in the coastal areas is pretty close to perfect. A study was done earlier, before the Great Recession, on this subject of do businesses flee California because of high taxes and regulation, and that study was largely debunked. Now, if you're a certain type of businessman, if you want to make your money on the backs of exploited low-wage workers with almost no rights at all in the workplace, then California might be a nightmare for you. But there are businesses who take a more responsible attitude toward their workforces and toward the environment. And California has always been strong on the environment, and so California is back. California has been running on all cylinders. While much of the rest of the country has continued to struggle, poverty has remained a horrible problem in the conservative parts of the United States. So Governor Brown actually won an award as one of the best job-creating governors anywhere in the United States. A lot of people don't know that. They continue to perpetuate this myth of California as an overregulated, overtaxed hellhole. But in spite of that, people still want to live there. A lot of businesses still want to live there. It's a funny thing. There was this brief flirtation by Boeing with Alabama, with moving some jobs out of Washington to Alabama. And so Alabama sought to court those jobs with the usual mix, of low taxes and low regulation and all that. And ultimately, Boeing did not move those jobs to Alabama. In fact, they moved them to California instead. Why did they do that? Because California is a place that a lot of people like to live. In contrast to a lot of red state America, California is a very tolerant state. You have people from all corners of the world. You have people from all corners of the country who have moved to California. They love the scenery. They love the climate. They love this welcoming atmosphere for newcomers. And I refer not just to immigrants, but to people who move there from all over the United States. In Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, you can find people from all over the country, all over the United States, including the South, who have relocated to California. And as I said, California has always been very strong on protecting its natural environment. So yeah, there are certain types of businesses that don't want to do business in California. They want to pay low wages, they don't want to provide any benefits, and when they get to states that are less regulated and less taxed, the benefits offered by those companies don't improve. As a matter of fact, I was reading a while back about some California-based companies that were thinking of moving to Texas, and the reason they wanted to do that was because it was less expensive and they could get away with paying their workers a lot less, and they just wanted to do business in that traditional red state fashion and minimize their expenses regardless of what happened to their people. But California in the last few years has been one of the most successful states in the United States, and much of that is attributable to the fact that, in contrast to the Tea Party toddlers that you have in the U.S. Congress and that you have in a lot of red state America, Jerry Brown has behaved like an adult. People in the California legislature have behaved like adults. The Bay Area business community has behaved like adults. And so now you have a situation where quality of life has improved dramatically for people in the state of California. And California is more generous with people in need than other states. Funny how that works, isn't it? People say that states that are generous to the poor are always going to be overregulated, overtaxed nightmares and never ever prosperous. California, especially some local areas in California, are very generous compared to other states with the poor, and now they're doing well. And I can't emphasize this enough. A lot of the job growth that has occurred in California since 2010 or so has been high wage, high salary job growth. Jerry Brown has done a fantastic job for California. I believe that the United States would, to this day, be a much better country, much better off in many ways, if Jerry Brown had been elected to the presidency in 1992 instead of Bill Clinton. Maybe there wouldn't have been NAFTA. Maybe there wouldn't have been welfare reform. Maybe there wouldn't have been this catastrophic repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act, which contributed to one of the worst economic downturns in U.S. history. So, as far as governors in the United States of America go, Jerry Brown has been one of the best. He's played a major role in returning California to its rightful position of prosperity. And California's always had a gross domestic product comparable to other countries. Even in the worst of times, California was still one of the richest states in the United States, one of the most powerful states in the United States. And California is on the move again. And as far as Governor Brown goes personally, he's a more down-to-earth kind of guy. He's not walking around up on cloud nine, as the Clintons seem to want to do, thinking he's up above everyone else. He's always lived a fairly modest lifestyle as governor of California and hasn't been involved with a lot of the fancy trappings that were in existence during the governator era, he's been a more common, down-to-earth kind of guy, one of the people, so to speak. And actually, in his years after serving as California's governor, he did go back and serve as mayor of Oakland, California for a while, which he was governor of, mayor of Oakland for a while. He's an interesting guy. He was a single man for a long, long time, and he actually thought of going into the Catholic priesthood. And he didn't do that, but he stayed single, and during his first times in office, he was known for dating people like Linda Ronstadt, and he only married in recent years, and my understanding is that he and his wife live in modest surroundings. Matter of fact, when Governor Brown was inaugurated as governor of California, it was kind of a populist event. It was held at some, I think, convention hall or community center, and they served hot dogs. It wasn't some super fancy inauguration. He didn't want to do that because California was suffering at that time. In contrast, the governor of, I happen to know this, the governor of Alabama, Robert Bentley, and his supporters spent a lavish amount of money on his inauguration in one of the poorest states in the United States. Governor Brown went for a populist inauguration, befitting what he was going to do as governor. You know, if you want to write in a candidate on Election Day, I don't think you'll find a better candidate than Governor Jerry Brown currently. Bernie Sanders essentially destroyed his movement when he signed on with Hillary Clinton. And if she is elected, people who supported Sanders are going to be horribly disappointed because they're not going to get anything they wanted with a Republican majority in the House, as now appears likely. So what do you plan to do on Election Day? My plan is to write in the name of one of America's best governors, one who has the statistics to back up that he's been one of America's best governors. A thoroughly likable guy, an extremely progressive governor, a very successful governor, Jerry Brown of California. So that's who I want to write in for the U.S. presidency this year, and I hope that you'll consider doing the same thing. And if you want to know more about Governor Brown, just pull up the Wikipedia articles and go to the governor's website and find out what he's been accomplishing in California all these years. And I think you'll be really pleased when you see the progress, the tremendous progress that California has made in the last few years. So here's what I say to you on Election Day 2016. Write in Governor Jerry Brown of California. If he were to actually be elected, I think you'd be very glad that you did. Thanks, and have a good day.